Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me once again. So today, as promised, we have another one of these wonderful, prejudging it I know, but wonderful Wingnut Wings kits for review. And today it is kind of the sister plane of the one we saw recently when we saw the Junkers D1. This is the Junkers J.1. Now this actually came out just fractionally earlier in the war, World War One. A couple of months earlier, so it was out in I think August 1917. It's got a different design. Obviously it's from the same manufacturer, but it's got some great similarities and some great differences with the one that we talked about before. This aircraft, which is quite a good looking one I have to say, or it would be if it didn't have this enormous Benz engine sticking out the top with a really great chimney. It looks most peculiar, I think. If you ignore that, it's actually quite a sleek looking aeroplane. And it's this, what do they call it, sequisoidal, where you have a biplane that has got short lower wing and a big upper wing, and the idea of it is that you can have less weight, you gain some lift by having it still as a biplane, two wings, but you haven't got as much outboard weight, so you've got a better centre of gravity, a little bit less weight. And it means you don't have to have a second strut for the outboard section, and you have a big top wing which gives the most lift, and you sort of get the benefits also of not, bumping your wingtips on landing and all that kind of thing. So that was the concept. Again, this is unique in the same way as the D1 was, in that it's the first. This is actually the first all-metal warplane because it came out first. And I said with the other review, the D1 was a fighter, or intended as a fighter. I'm not sure it worked out that well, but it didn't really get to have its day in the sun very much. It was too late anyway. But this is a ground attack plane. So this really is designed at shooting down at the trenches, and you can see we have two men in this one. So it's a two-man ground attack plane. The idea being that they will machine gun targets on the ground and drop these flechette type bombs over the side. As required, really. So it's ground attack, it's not a fighter. Now, as I understand it, and I'm sure we'll get more detail when we open it up, but it wasn't that successful. It wasn't a bad plane. It was actually considered very stable. They quite liked it, but they also called it the flying furniture van because it wasn't that manoeuvrable. And I think that part of the problem is it's got big wings, it's all metal, so it's not really light. And yet they tried to make it as light as they could. In fact, it was, I think it was less than 0.2 millimeters in places. It had really thin aluminium. It's almost paper thin, the aluminium. I think it was the thinnest alloy they could actually find at the time. So much so that there were instructions to ground crew saying it had to be handled very gently because you can actually dent it quite easily by pushing against it. You put a dent in it, or if you hit it with anything, a tool in your hand, you could actually puncture through. That's how thin it was. It wasn't much thicker than thick foil, really. So yes, quite an interesting aircraft. They tried to make it as light as they could, but obviously with limited technology and limited power plants, it wasn't that fast, and it certainly wasn't that manoeuvrable. But anyway, we will get into it. Let's bring you in a bit closer. So, another beautiful artwork from Wingnut Wings here, as we have come to expect. On the side, we've got a little bit of description. It says the J-type design was an armoured ground attack. Oh yeah, there is one other thing I should mention. Another thing that was unique about this, it has like an armoured bathtub style area that the pilot and the navigator stroke gunner sit in. So they're in like an armoured bathtub within, like a cell within the aircraft. Again, to resist light fire from the ground. Probably wouldn't resist a heavy machine gun or artillery fire, of course, but any sort of rifle or pistol fire from the ground, it would probably be very effective, and that was the idea, to protect them from underneath. Anyway, it goes on to say, was one of the most revolutionary aircraft and nicknamed the Flying Tank. Oh, okay. Or the removal van, as I mentioned. It was the A-10 Thunderbolt of its day, so that's a great way to think about it. Ground attack, heavily armoured, perhaps a bit slow, but very effective at picking out ground targets. It was able to attack enemy ground targets whilst remaining impervious to enemy ground fire. Despite being heavy, relatively slow, and required a long takeoff and landing when it would do, It was popular with its crew due to the protection and the armoured front section and all the all-metal airframe. There we go. So we've got one from 1917, doesn't give a date. Looks like that's a 1918 variant, different art, different unit, unidentified unit, etc. etc. Right, and then the usual blurb. So let's have a look at the kit. Now, this is a Wingnut Wings kit, so it goes without saying that it is quite valuable. So this one is probably another £250 easy now, getting rarer and rarer, of course. So we're going to have to be a bit careful with it. We can't open the bags, but I'll try and do my best to show you what I can. Let us have a look inside. So again, we have got. This feels quite heavy, I've got to say. This box. We've got some clear parts. We've got some corrugated steel. Lots more corrugated steel. There's a lot of corrugated steel. This has got a lot of spreaders as well. It's got a lot more than the other Junkers have. It's a bit of a slightly bigger aircraft, of course. So we'll gently pull these out. And we'll have a good old look. And the side of the aircraft, we'll come to it later, but I think that's the sheet steel, not corrugated. Probably a bit heavier, isn't it? Now then. We've got open instructions there, so that's nice because we can look at the illustrations, which are always a treat. I think Wingnuts always do us proud. Nope, I'm not going to have another power cut. Those of you that saw the recent the Junkers J.1 review, luckily I had my little lights on here, but we had a power cut right in the middle of the video, put up to maximum brightness, and luckily I had these bright lights on, so it didn't make that much difference. But we've got some very strange weather going on. It's very rough, wet, dark. Not warm either, so that's why I'm dressed with my roll neck on rather than a snazzy shirt. Right, we're going to start with the decals. There's many decals, mainly German crosses, and they look really nice, I've got to say. So there's quite a lot. And you've got the sort of traditional German cross, you know, the more of a Christian style cross, should we call it, fluted, and we've got the standard thick crosses that became normal during World War II later. Printed, it says on it, printed by Cartograph, so they're going to be lovely decals, aren't they? We know that that's going to be a high quality product. Seems that we also have some photo etch on the back. Not very much. In fact, it just looks like it's a couple of belts actually. That's all we have here. There we go. Yeah, but it looks nice. Theirs is always fairly thin, quite a nice photo etch quality, and they've got some beautiful buckles on the belts if you look there. That does look good, doesn't it? Yeah, we like that. It just amazes me actually with Wingnut Wings kind of make people think, oh, it doesn't have very much photo etch, and we get into this belief we should have lots of photo etch. The reality with Wingnuts, of course, is that the quality of the moulding is so fine that, you know, photo etch is just for gilding little things the way you can't get it any other way, which is why there's so little of it. Their plastic moulding, injection moulding technology was so good that really it didn't need a lot of photo etch. So anyway, there's a nice decal, so that's the start. Let's get into this lovely sort of brochure style colour instructions. I'm sure there's going to be lots of photographs. So it's designed as a ground attack and German army liaison aircraft, so it's used for reconnaissance as well. Quite revolutionary. Its construction, as we talked about. It says the airframe was constructed entirely of duraluminium. Duraluminium, not aluminum. Okay. Duraluminium, which is a type of aluminium, obviously. On dural tubes, completely sheathed in corrugated dural sheet. The front fuselage was 5mm armoured sheet to protect the crew. Right, okay, that's why it looks different from enemy fire. The rear fuselage, fin and rudder were covered with fabric, but later production aircraft have the fin and rudder sheathed in corrugated sheet dural, which is... I don't think this is the later aircraft then, because it seems to be this... Yeah, it's not the corrugated, I don't think. I think that this is yeah, I think this is steel, that's fabric. We'll come to that in a second. So yeah, it was the 18th Thunderbird. It's day, The aircraft colours are rather contentious at the best of times. We've done our best to provide you with the best information we can find. Well, this is the problem with World War I. It's really hard to find proper colour references for any of these things, and you know, some aircraft were painted in the field, so it's quite hard to tell what they should have been really. Shows all the sprue trees there, as you can see, and then it gets put straight in, does it? let's go straight into cockpit assembly. Now I mentioned about this bathtub style, so what you've effectively got is like a reinforced dural steel sheeting, as mentioned. So you're building up your front bulkhead, and then you've got your seat here, which looks like it's the seat for, the first one seems to be the seat, yeah, for the gunner, because it's got this swivel system to give him access to move around. There was some data I read about this plane where it said that although it was designed for ground attack, it wasn't always that easy, especially you couldn't really fire forwards because the wings were in the way. So it wasn't actually that great in terms of the position. Perhaps they positioned the gunner a bit too close, a bit too far forward. Perhaps it'd been more effective if they moved him back, but then you affect other things, weight, centre of gravity and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, interior painting guide, you get this lovely colour guide here. I'll bring in a bit more, you don't want to see me. Let's have a look at this. We have got here the usual high standard Wingnut Wings, lovely colours. Basically shows you the colour it should be, which is very, very helpful, very helpful. And then we've got the pilot's seat coming in here, so we're building up, looks like an interesting design. It looks like an armchair, isn't it, with arms? It's like the sort of thing you get in a gentleman's club, really, which is quite nice. And it shows it's obviously got to be leather because it's brown, and then you're building up your various controls, etc. Another thing about this aircraft that was remarkable or revolutionary at the time was that it had push rods and pull rods and bell cranks. I think you can see one of the bell cranks here, rather than just cables going around like a ferrule, or like on a pivot or a wheel, which can, they wear and they're not as accurate. So this was quite direct feeling for the controls, I think. Here we've got how to paint the upper coving of the upper coving for the fuselage, and then putting it in place there. And you've got paint. These are flares, so they're flares stuck on the side of the aircraft. Okay, and then you start building your inboard lower section wing, which have these struts, very meaty looking struts indeed to support it, as you can see. Then we're building the tail planes and the elevators. Sorry, I've got a lot of light on this. And then you're bringing in your vertical stabiliser and your rudder. Again, quite a lot of corrugated sheet here. I suspect the drag was quite low though, because corrugated sheet, it almost acts like flow generators, doesn't it? The corrugation. I don't know if that has a drag effect as well, but probably not actually. Probably helps. And then we've got the Benz Mark IV engine, so it's an inline 6-cylinder engine. Obviously it's not fuel injection at this time, it's just a carburetor system, which looks really cool. The only problem with this engine is it's very tall, isn't it, for the aircraft. It sort of does spoil the lines a bit, you see what I mean here? Very, very, sticks out very high. And then you imagine that in, and then you've got the upper centre section of the upper wing, which is coming in here. So then you've got your main wing sections inboard, upper and lower, in place here. Then we've got these outer struts, like cabane struts. How do you pronounce it? Cabane or cabane? I never know. Anyway, you've got the main heavy struts there coming in, and you've got your undercarriage struts, again, look quite meaty. Quite a chunky undercarriage looking, with a bit of suspension there, I think. And they go on, plus your wheels, and you put a little axle washer on to make sure that they spin. And then we've got this, I think, rather monstrous exhaust chimney that goes on the top of this and blows it right above the plane. I mean, this is not great for drag, to be honest. I'm a little surprised at that. By late World War I, you thought they'd have had an exhaust maybe down the side, especially with the metal fuselage. It's not a worry about heat. So anyway, that's the choice they made. That was obviously a Daimler thing. And then we have these like cowlings which are coming in here and sort of go in at the back and then close at the front. And then you've got your prop and your spinner going on. And then there's a picture of those cowlings actually opened. Engine bay interior bracing, as they call it, and it's a captured one there. Looks to me like that's been captured along with its pilot, because I think the chap on the left is not not the Royal Flying Corps, it looks like a German. Anyway. Then we've got another thing about Wingnut Wings, the paper is beautiful. It's not only is it beautifully printed, but it's thick. It's very thick. You keep thinking there are 2 pages and there aren't, there's only one. So anyway, here we go. We've got the these are the sort of upper wing sections with your ailerons and your lower wing sections that just plug in, which looks like a very clever solution and gives the model some rigidity and strength, I think. And then you've got your parabellum machine guns going in, complete with telescopic sight that they have, the OIG sight, and it goes of course on a rotating ring to enable it to be aimed and turned fore and aft, etc. And the final assembly where you put that in, and that's really the end of the construction. So then we've got the sort of photo start to creep in, showing you different finishes. It's quite curious, isn't it, the way they have this cutout for the rudder. It's I can imagine a lot of air disturbance around that. I'm not sure that was the most aerodynamic design, but never mind. And then we've got various options in terms of colours and schemes. We've got like a greeny, sort of grey-green, German grey style one with sort of a creamy white underneath. Then we've got a proper camo one. Unidentified unit, which again, you've got either option. And then we've got some lovely photographs of the actual aircraft, and here you can see these cowlings that go around the engine, obviously to keep the wind off it and stop it being struck by birds and things. Prominent rivets on the armoured plating surfaces. The camouflage is well depicted in this photograph. You can also see the original red oxide primer here underneath, and the sand colour represents clear dope and linen of less aggressive aircraft. But they've actually painted it in a style that you didn't really need, because they painted it as though it was doped. Perhaps that was to fool the enemy, I don't know. Hole in the wing for a compass, it says here. Elevator rudder cables exit the rear of the armoured fuselage section. So you can see how they actually come out, some of this rigging and control cables I mentioned. And then we've got this Canadian one, looks a bit sorry, doesn't it? You can see what I mentioned earlier though. You can see that the metal doesn't look, thick. It looks very thin, doesn't it? And you can see there's lots of dents and holes in it as a result. But hey, it is over 100 years old. And then we've got lots of fittings are missing, it says here. Rear gunner's stroke observation platform, horseshoe mounts with the bulkhead for the radio. The horseshoe mounts on the bulkhead. Oh yes, here. Horseshoe mounts there, sorry, there and there. Cockpit interior for the pilot. Unusual aileron crank arrangement. Yeah, interesting. Okay, and there's a photo of how it should have looked. A complete cockpit with a contemporary photo of the time showing the instrument arrangement. Okay. This is the danger, isn't it, with ones that are in museums. They often get modified or changed, or they have bits missing. So if you go to your local museum, just bear that in mind. It may not be complete or original. Photo opportunity following a spectacular but not too uncommon landing accident allows us to view the irregular mauve green over camo pattern. Well, that's wings have come right off, haven't they? Oh dear. Looks like they survived anyway, that's the main thing. Post-war wreckage showing the camo scheme. And then down here we've got the compass and the radio aerial details in a close-up. So they had the compass out on the wing, not in the cockpit. How bizarre. Recovery of this heavy aircraft after the almost obligatory landing accident represented a few more problems than most aircraft of the Great War. So it wasn't good on landing because it was so heavy. It took a long time to take off, a long time to land, so if you didn't get it just right, you were going to run long probably. It's quite an attractive plane though, isn't it? The fuselage is attractive. I'm not sure about the wings, but post-war post-propaganda photo. Streamers on the lower wings. Wingtip streamers. And then we've got oversized white surround to the fuselage cross section. Oversized white surround. On the cross, I mean. German cross. Brave teddy bear precariously positioned behind the Ben's snorkel. Good gracious, I don't believe it. Yes, brave indeed. And then this is the one that's located in the Canadian Aviation Museum. that we've just seen, which is good, isn't it? After the end of hostilities, they note the rack mounted between the centre undercarriage struts and the associated cable housing here, running down from the cockpit. Allow centre undercarriage struts. So evidence of the Junkers being used as a bomber has yet to be seen, but this rack could conceivably have been used for bombs, so it's a little bomb rack, obviously. And then finally, sadly, we end up with our heroes from Wingnut Wings who made this all possible, and sadly, not there anymore. So I wish them well if they're watching. So let's have a look at the plastic then. What have we got? Lots of it. Now, try and do a little bit less light, because it seems to give us problems when we have too much bright light. Oops. We want to try our best to reduce the glare from the bag. It will start, in fact, with the engine. So this is this Daimler engine, which, as you can see, is beautifully replicated, the cylinders here. Got the cylinder heads, we've got the main body of the engine there, and we've got, seem to have two versions of this, maybe two options. It's a straight 6, so there's only 6 cylinders, but we seem to have got 2 lots. Can you see that? 2 lots of cylinders. 1 pair, 2 pairs I should say. But it looks very nice. Again, you know, look at this moulding quality. Look at these parabellum machine guns here, they're absolutely stunning. And you've got, again, 2 versions where one's got the jacket and one hasn't. And they would use both for different reasons, I think. Look at that, look at the detail here on the ammunition belt. That's gorgeous, isn't it? Very nice. As ever, absolutely stunning detail, and I'm afraid that Meng are not matching up to that standard, are they? Less said about that the better. Don't get me started on that again. See my other videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just look up Meng triplane. Anyway, so here we've got the main fuselage sprue, and we've got some beautiful, we've got a lovely spinner here, and this is this top coving for the cockpit area where the obviously this is where the gunner sits and this is where the pilot sits, and then we've got this armour plated dura-aluminium, got it right. Yeah, there are 2 eyes in aluminium, guys. Yeah. So I'm just winding up our friends across the water. And then we've got this lovely prop, as you can see here, which looks very nicely rendered, doesn't it? Look at that. Oh yeah, super. And then we've got these struts, which of course are vital to give it the strength it needs. And yeah, I do wonder about this aircraft in some respects. In trying to do what they did with the design, it makes me curious about this stability problems it seemed to have that they moan about. Not being good for takeoff, not being good on landing, not being good on manoeuvring. It makes me wonder whether they inadvertently made it quite top heavy. Maybe it wasn't that well balanced, to be honest. Who knows? Could be a factor, couldn't it? Right, we've got clear parts, we've got tiny clear parts. There's a little screen here just for the pilot only, and then that is it. Gosh, it seems very slow today, sorry about that. So, there we go, Wingnut Wings, that logo that we missed so much there. And then there's a little screen. So that was quite short and sweet. And then we've got another big sprue. Zoom, okay, again. So this is a monster, isn't it? So this is your main top wing corrugated steel. It looks absolutely sharp and clean, and it's amazing, isn't it? They can do this without any flash whatsoever. It's totally flash free. You know, and yet if you believe what they say, that Meng are the people who moulded this for them, I'm not convinced. It's not the same place that moulded the triplane, because we know that's got lots of problems. This is just perfection. It looks like they sent it to Tamiya rather than Meng to me, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, so here you've got these huge, absolutely enormous ailerons, which are like more than half the wing, I'd say. They're absolutely vast. So, again, strange that you had such big control surfaces, yet it didn't manoeuvre that well. So it does make you wonder about other factors, doesn't it? But it's beautifully done. And they're in two halves. And as usual, you know, you get your eject pin marks on the back, but there's nothing on the front at all. A really, really attractive sprue, that one. And just hard to take in how big the parts are. It's beautifully scalloped the top of this wing as well, and we can catch that on the camera. It scallops in here. So, yeah, aerodynamics don't look too bad, really. I don't know why it was having so many problems. Now the outer parts of the wing, the extreme inner and the extreme outer parts of the bottom wing, in fact, I think that is. The short wing. And then we've got this centre section here. As you can see, that's the inboard sort of central location. And you can see that the corrugation is in two different widths, so it's widely corrugated here. The glare, that's better. Widely corrugated on the outboard, and then much more finely corrugated on the inboard. And then again, same here on the other side. And then we've got exhaust manifold here, which of course ends up in that really bizarre shroud, which here it is, which ends up poking out the top of the engine and right into the airflow, which is most bizarre, just like a chimney really. I don't think that the person that designed the aeroplane designed that engine somehow, obviously. There's a bit of a lack of understanding of aerodynamics there. A fundamental lack. Right, now we've got lots of small parts here. Now, if I cut these lights, you might actually get a better image. I think you will. Maybe a little less bright might help us. Yes, I think it does help us for clarity. So let's have a look. So we've got some nice struts here. And then we're moving on to bracing struts that go across. You've got the cabane strut here. Parts of the top bodywork. You've got a bulkhead here. Whoops, oh look there. And then we've got lots of small parts. And again, beautifully formed, you know, fine details. Instruments on the bulkhead here. Very nicely done. And then we've got this seat arrangement that ends up looking like a bit of an armchair. This one, with these padded armrests, leather. no expense spared, obviously. And then we have various little stirrups. We've got the wheels, obviously, and the tyres, the inner wheel and the outer section. And it all looks beautiful, you know. And the thing that strikes you when you handle these Wingnut sprues is that they are, I know, I'm not going to harp on about the triplane, but you can't be overstated in a way. They're always true. They're flat, they feel very strong. There's no warping or bowing on this kit, like the others from Wingnuts. Perfect sprues, every time. But Samuel. So why can't Ming do that then? Just saying. Now we've got the tailplane with all the corrugated rudder, elevators, lots and lots of small parts as well, in terms of some of the bracing bulkheads, etc., going towards the back of the aircraft. And then there's this rather odd tail section, which is curious, isn't it? It's two-sided in this case. Bring you in a bit, see if it's a bit better. There we go. It's a little bit odd, isn't it, as a design for the aircraft? I mean, it sort of stops short, it doesn't go all the way, and then you have a rudder sticking up here with this sort of weird gap, like an L shape. Very strange design, I don't know. Again, it just looks a little bit like it was designed by a committee of engineers rather than one person. There's different ideas and influences seem to have come to bear within the design of the plane, but the plastic is beautiful. Absolutely stunning, all the ribs are there. It's real nice, beautiful injection moulding at its finest. And then finally, last sprue, we've got the outer top wing, absolutely huge. So I'll zoom in and just look at one at a time, I think, make it easier, won't it? There we go. Look at that. And this has got rivets in it as well, so there's a lot more fine detail on this top. Obviously they had to make it very strong, and it has like it's got like almost like a gurney flap here, like you get on the back of a Formula 1 car wing, to stop any gap appearing between the aileron and the main wing. It's to kill the gap, so they don't get any bleed or loss of lift. And that's really nicely done. The same on the other side, and then we've got the underside section of it here, and it's just gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, it's perfection, isn't it? We know. I mean, look how strong they look as well. Look on the other side, the way that Wingnuts have actually constructed it to be, because they know it's quite a big kit, this one, and they want it to be rigid, so they've put it in like box sections to make it as strong as possible. So there you go. Great design from Wingnut Wings in terms of the way that they have created it. I mean, we talk about flat sprues, and this is one that's cleverly has got this design where they have, to get it in the box, they've actually created a scalloped effect, but it's absolutely rock solid. Look how strong that is. It's just solid, no messing about. Can you see that? This is clever engineering on scale models for injection moulding. Look at that. So it steps up because they need it to give clearance, and they want to have room in the box. But look at the strength of it. Look at the contact points. It's quality plastic. It's thick, rigid, well braced. Proper engineering. And this is the reason that we miss Wingnut Wings, because the quality of their product is just fantastic. It's always evident in every product you look at. My only regret is I just wish they'd done other subjects as well as World War I. I don't mind any of the World War I things they've done. I think it's marvellous. I just wish they'd done other things, because I think if they'd done other things they might have made a lot more money. But anyway. There we go. So that is the Junkers J.1. Now I forgot to say this, I think, on my Junkers D1, but I think it almost goes without saying it's 10 out of 10, because there's nothing in there I can find any fault with. Makes it easy, I don't have to think about it, or am I being fair? No, it's 10 out of 10, there's no argument, that's it. So, a wonderful product and an interesting aircraft. It's got this elegance and yet it's got this clumsiness. It's kind of very unusual the way it's conceptualised, elegant, clumsy, some strange things, a bit of a compromise in many ways, but a very, very nice product as a kit. Hope you found it interesting. I hope you will also give me 10 out of 10, and I hope you'll subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you are a subscriber, then thank you for joining us, and I hope you're enjoying the videos. And don't forget to ding the notification bell, because that will give you alerts about all the upcoming new videos that we're making. And I've got a couple more of these fantastic Wingnuts, and they're kind of getting better and better, I think, as well. So please tune in for those, and in the meantime, please stay healthy, stay warm like I'm trying to do, and I hope to see you in the very near future for another review. In the meantime, thanks a lot, and bye for now.